it is always so good to be here, Austin Center for Spiritual Living. And we're talking about flowing ground. All right. So we're going to start with an Emerson quote. The permanence is but a word of degrees. Our globe seen by God is a transparent law, not a mass of facts. The law dissolves the facts and holds it fluid. Ernest Holmes says, in dealing with the subtle power of mind and spirit, we are dealing with the fluent force. It is forever taking form and forever deserting the form for which it is taken. So the conversation we're having today is about how do we meet this world we live in and shift consciousness grounded in truth principles so we can look at what seems to be solid facts in the eyes and say, you're not so real after all. And what we come to understand is that thoughts are things. They begin also with the frequency of feeling, and that we become aware of these thoughts. And we have the capacity to choose and change our thoughts and watch the demonstration in our lives transform our world. So Ernest Holmes, the science of mind point of view they want to focus on is that we believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind. And so I had to look up the word control. I didn't like the word control. I'm like, let me just take a look at what it really means. And it means the power of influence to direct people's behaviors through the course of events. So what we're doing is that we're not controlling, like grasping, we're meeting the present moment, but we're not allowing those facts to bind us into thinking this is all that there is. So think about, we're living now in this realm, we're becoming more and more aware of what quantum physics is saying, that we're really literally these energetic beings. All right. So if like touch your hand and our hands feel solid. And if you poke my hand would bleed and blood would come out. And this form seems like it's pretty put together. But the truth of the matter is that scientists have continued to reveal that beneath the form is all these patterns that are working together, these cells in our tissues and our systems, and you go deeper into the atoms, and then you go deeper into the quantum field, and then you go deeper into emptiness. So what seems solid is actually not, which is a little bit mind-boggling. But it reminds us that we are these fluid and fluent beings of energy, light, and love. And the other thing too is, like, I lived in Los Angeles for 8 years, and if you've ever experienced an earthquake, you would know the term flowing ground. All right, I experienced the first earthquake while on the set of Defending Your Life, and it was rolling, and I was on this movie set, and I'm looking around because we had these trams going, and I'm thinking, why is it moving? And this woman comes up to me, she goes, "Honey, where are you from?" I go, "I'm from Texas." She goes, "Well, this is an earthquake." And I experienced other earthquakes where what seems to be solid ground was shifting and moving. So that force, that appearance of this force of nature that's happening. So what seems solid, in fact, is fluent, and reminds us that when we see something or we hear something, and people say, well, it's always been that way, it never changes, I'm reminded of these forces of nature, of the quantum field, of the ground flowing, because everything changes. Life is impermanent. The universe is fluid, and we get stuck in these conditioned thinking, both individually and collectively. I mean, think of some of the things maybe your family told you. Well, it was always done this way. That's just how it is. And the truth of the matter is, that's not the truth. We've taken something and we've made it solid and limited ourselves. We're not wanting to go backwards. We're always moving forwards. We're spiraling upwards. We're open at the top. And as we become more conscious individually and collectively, that's how we can direct the change. That's how we can shift from the old paradigms, the old structures, which you're seeing. Like an earthquake, there's a whole lot of shaking going on if you turn on the news. The old patriarchal structures are falling. This new consciousness of the oneness, of the compassion, community, and just, the collective energy that's within each of us that we're celebrating and coming together, that's what's arising. But in that arising, the old is being let go while the new is arriving. Ernest Holmes also says in Living Science of Mind, he goes, when we clear the consciousness, that is the whole mental life, both conscious and subjective, of discord, we are automatically healed. And so what we're seeing is this purification process happening. We're seeing this clearing of consciousness. We're beginning to understand, like the book Illusions, which I love that passage because I want to reread that book. I read that book when I was living in Los Angeles in the 1990s, and I absolutely loved it. That the ground is flowing. He's swimming in the ground. He's walking on water, and what we're able to understand is the power of the presence that is God, that's revealing as our life, the shift that we're seeking to experience and express. All right. So when we clear the consciousness, we're clearing the consciousness of limitation. We're clearing the consciousness of the old thought patterns, but we're not focused on them, right? Because we are allowing that spiritual realization to bring about healing. But I want to speak just very briefly about what is really healing, because we think of physical, mental, emotional. And because I want to share this one story, a very, very dear friend of mine 2 weeks ago passed away. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow. And so 2 weeks yesterday, her name's Jody Roberts. I had a 2-hour conversation with her on Zoom. She had gone through an 8-month, journey with back surgery and being paralyzed, and then just in the hospital and rehab. And, she almost let go. And then we went and talked to her, and a fire, lit up in her. And when I talked to her, she was in such an optimistic, positive mode. She's like, my doctor said I will walk. She goes, I'm determined. Jody was always about taking care of Mother Earth and changing the vibration literally through sound healing. All the Tibetan bowls that I have come from her. And so the conversation Saturday was just like so optimistic. We were planning events. The next day, she ends up that night with an infection. When I heard she was in the ICU, I'm like, she's done. Because Jody had been wanting to leave that body temple for a long time. Remember, impermanence, everything changes. So I was on the phone with some friends on Monday, and they were actually intuitive, and they were doing healing on her. And I was holding the truth in prayer. And then one friend said, she's healed. She's spiritually healed right now. And literally she died an hour later. Now, some people may think that wasn't a healing, but in fact, it was a healing, because she herself initiated a new chain of causation, like Ernest Holmes said, because she was ready to leave the body temple because she knew her spirit was infinite, right? So the healing can happen on different levels. We know healing can happen in our body. We know healing can happen in the world. The transformation is the transformation of consciousness. Impermanence means everything is changing. That was Jody being complete with Jody's body, but her soul is talking to everybody because that's just the way Jody is. So remember that spiritualization is the healing. And in that spiritual realization, we can align consciously with spiritual principles to co-create with spirit the life and the world we're seeking to reveal. Because everything is about truth, beauty, and good. This is the revelation of God: truth, beauty, and good. And Joe Dispenza says, understanding and utilizing the unseen forces that shape our reality, that's how we change the world from the inside out. So remember, we're not looking at the old to create the new. Buckminster Fuller said, you can never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So I'm not focused on the past. I'm not focused on, the patterns that I'm seeing. I'm leaning into, I'm opening up to that higher dimensional frequency of the divine love, peace, joy, wisdom, and asking what is seeking to reveal and emerge in this situation, whether it's my personal life or all that we're seeing in the world, the wars, the violence, the poverty, the chaos, the climate change. All right. So these are conditions that can really distract us. And we can allow our difficult emotions to arise, concern and fear and overwhelm, but then we must turn to spirit, going within, living from that place that already in the mind of God, it's already done, and allowing ourselves to receive those intuitive hits of our next step, both individually and collectively. And we listen. And that's the process of visioning. So we're not against something or resisting. And trust me, I've done a ton of marches my entire life. I've marched for every single rights possible. And in my younger years, it was that, against this. And we cannot be in that energy of against if we want to create something new, right? We bear witness to the suffering. We acknowledge that people are having these experiences, or I'm having this experience, or this is occurring, the wars that are occurring. But we shift into that higher mind, that listening to the vision of what is seeking to reveal in this moment, for the truth, the good and beauty of God. And then we allow ourselves to be guided from that place, not not fear, but guided by the higher awareness, guided by the good, so that the new way of being emerges. The new vision becomes clear. We start building a new model from the inside out. So Ernest Holmes says, find me one person who's for something and against nothing, who's redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of their soul, and I will find another Savior, another Jesus, another exalted human being. And that's part comes from his Sermon of the Sea. So I'm not there yet. I'm not a reluctant Messiah. I'm not another, I'm not there in consciousness yet, but I'm getting there. Because sometimes I do have judgments that come up when I turn on the news or my heart hurts. And once again, I want to bear witness to that human experience, but then the shift is always in consciousness, always. So look at your life. What seems to be solid in your life? And are you holding on because it feels comfortable and certain? Because life is uncertain. We know in the not knowing, but spirit knows, right? We can align in what we seek to experience, but the how is up to God. We are that receptivity, that place of revealing all that spirit is seeking to experience and express in through and as us individually and collectively. But we can look at the conditioning in our lives, whether it's through, our genetics or the diagnosis that we get or our finances or work, and we get caught up in believing like that's just the way it is. And that's limiting. It's constrictive. And we can look at something and see that maybe this is the experience in the moment, but we are not bound by it. Principle is not bound by the present. And we have the power within us that allowing spirit to reveal itself by us attuning to that vision to create the shift. So think about yourself 10, 15, 20 years ago, or before you got into new thought. Think about those thoughts. What thoughts did you have in your life that limited you? What familiar patterns were just like so present there? And now notice where you are now, how the shifts in consciousness have led you here and that continued expansion of who you are. Because we forget that everything is initially created by the infinite consciousness and we are the individualized expressions of it, right? And so we're co-creating with spirit. And the evolution of life is always from the inside out. That involution, evolution is happening by our aligning in consciousness, our aligning in truth principles, right? And so instead of fighting and struggling, we're being called to pause, to take a breath, to actually bear witness to what the experience is. On a human experience, to allow what difficult emotions may be present, to honor them, to walk with them, but they don't get to lead. What gets to lead is the consciousness of knowing the spiritual reality that the power and the presence that we call God is seeking to reveal itself, that it's not limited, it is infinite. I wish you could have heard Reverend Mary's prayer at 10:20, because that was the whole talk. I'm like, why was that not recorded? She so beautifully described the consciousness of oneness, the creative energy that's seeking to, express in, through, and as us. And then we consciously collaborate together to create the world that we want, the world that we desire. And not just for us, but a world that works for everyone. When we remember the how is God, when we remember quantum physics is that wave of possibility becomes that particle of actuality by our awareness, our attention, then that's how we create the world that we're seeking to not only live in, but what we seek to be in it. Because remember, it's from the inside out. We're seeking to, find the way to look at these solid facts and instead say, you're not so solid. Change is happening all the time. That ground is flowing, and I can actually utilize these principles, that fluent force of the universe that is seeking just to be expressed, and just that we get to be, like I said earlier, that we get to initiate that new chain of causation, as Ernest Holmes says. So this may have been, and I'm not going to detail and outline ABCD. Ernest even says, he goes, stay in the experience that you're seeking to express. I don't know. I left it at home, but I don't know if you've gotten the book on the Asilomar talks. They are phenomenal. And it is that constant reminder of spiritual principle, of being in that space of allowing, receiving, that the egoic mind doesn't get to lead, right? That inner critic, or it's always been this way, or whatever you see on the news, or what you're hearing, from people. It's like, it's never going to change. I'm like, but we are where it changes. We are the place where it gets to express as us. And the shift happens in consciousness. So we must get clear if we really are sincere about wanting a world that works for everyone and to allow the truth and the beauty and the good of God to experience and express itself, then it has to start here. Which is why, like, once again, Ernest says, don't be against something, be for something, for love, for joy, for compassion, for community, for the health and well-being of all beings everywhere, for the health and well-being of this planet, Mother Earth, for all of our children, for people around this, entire universe. And I can guarantee there's got to be more than just these little earthlings here. So this universe is expansive and infinite. And if I can just know that, and I can see it in the miracles of life, and that the way that the fall leaves have been cascading. I love driving in it. I can hear the leaves just like, almost screeching in delight, and that letting go. So then we go into that quiet of winter, and then the spring emerges. Those cycles, they remind us of the way, and then summer with its abundance, it reminds us of the invisible becoming visible, of the impermanence of life, the change, of this constant expression of the divine. And we as human beings, spiritual beings in this human body, get to express it and experience it. So this is a call for new consciousness, a new heaven, thoughts, feelings, and earth, which is form. Not separate. It's all the way that God shows up. And so we have to lift ourselves literally out of old beliefs, and to not thinking things are solid, or things have to be this way, or it's been done for generations. Like, I'm the only non-Catholic in my family, right? So it was always that way. My mother said everybody was that. I'm like, I honor it. I loved growing up like that. I go, but if I did not allow myself to authentically experience God the way that resonates with me, I would be stuck in that limited conditioned box, right? So we all find our way of experiencing divine. And we are verbs. I love that. An evolutionary process, an integral function of the universe, it says. And so our choices to co-create reality have that capacity to transform, because we're doing it consciously. We're not doing it out of reflex, habit, old paradigms. Everybody does that. I share with the kids at school, sometimes it's really difficult being the one that stands up to the yes of something new when everybody's in this group of this is how it has to be. All right. That authenticity, that voice of God that's seeking to shift into a higher awareness. So our teaching symbol is that roadmap, that involution and evolution of God that's seeking to express. So just, this week, just kind of contemplate, like, what habits, what thought patterns are still kind of stalking you, are still there, or they make you feel safe in a false way. They keep you really boxed, but you're really uncomfortable. When you're really uncomfortable, that's how you know something new is seeking to emerge. And do it consciously. Do it consciously. Don't let the outer effects then, direct your life. Allow yourself to listen to what vision is seeking to reveal itself, and then consciously co-create with spirit, right? And that we know that the world is constantly changing. We're taking from the, this wisdom, this intuitive insight that's revealing itself, because already in the mind of God, it's done. We just have to listen and choose. And that to me is exciting. And I know it's challenging. I turn on the news and sometimes it just breaks my heart. I teach at a school where some of my kids are homeless. They're living, from hotel to hotel. I see these conditions, and then I can have these feelings of sadness and overwhelm. But then I ask, what actually is seeking to emerge here? What is the one thing that I can be and do and express to be that presence of love and light, to create a shift in a way that is a revelation of truth, good, and beauty? So the ground is flowing. You got to surf the waves, as they say, even in mindfulness. And so the invitation really is, are you willing? Are you willing now just to look at any old patterns or habits without judgment? And are you willing to co-direct your life with spirit, like really truly listen? And how much more of spirit are you really not only ready to embody, but to express? Because you would not be here if that which we call God did not have a need for you. And you bring in your gifts and your light and your love and your joy. And so we look at the world within us and around us with love and compassion. We look at what was, and we just tell ourselves, I can't stay there. Because think about it. Do you really want to go back to high school? No, I don't. I'm 60 years old. I see, even like the great times I had in college or in, my 40s, but I don't want to live in the past in these old paradigms. Spirit is seeking to emerge. And that's where we open our hearts and we open our minds. We flow, we swim in that good. We allow ourselves to be that place and that space and that grace from which consciousness seeks to reveal. And we hold true to the vision in our hearts of a world that works for everyone, no matter what the news tells us, or no matter what the world wants to reveal. But that's why we come together in community. That's why we practice visioning and meditations and affirmations. That's why we use spiritual mind treatments, so that we may shift and then be, and then collectively connect and create the world that we're seeking to create. So just, lightly, walk lightly with this, but also just really take into your heart, what is seeking to be let go and what is seeking to reveal, and allow it to flow. And just know that that flowing ground, that fluid force, that dynamic energy, that source energy is your very life, your very life. And when the world seems just a little too harsh, gather together in meditation, gather together in prayer, hold on to the truth, bear witness to the suffering, but hold on to the truth that there's a power for good in the universe, and I can use it. We can use it. And step by step, breath by breath, we'll see the shift. And we'll come back 10 years from now and have this conversation again to see what has shifted. All right. So I invite you just to go within and just take all that has been, revealed, that presence of God, that oneness, that one love, that one power, this dynamic source energy that is all of life. It's a source of life. It is my life. It is your life. It is every 8 billion people on this planet. But think of everything else on this planet, the animals and the plants and the trees and the water and the air. And then this is one little planet out of infinite ways of expression. That this divine source energy is seeking to reveal itself in powerful, beautiful ways. So that we, in this human experience, can look at what is happening in the world, but tell that solid fact you're not so solid after all. Because the fluent force that is the dynamic law and the dynamic love of God is seeking to reveal itself. And that we can understand that in that knowingness, the shift is in consciousness, that the truth principles seeking to reveal will reveal just by us allowing, saying yes to that which is greater, that just comes in through and as us. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to just to bear witness to what is truly happening in the world, to allow our hearts, to offer our love to the suffering, but then we hold the truth. We hold the truth of good and beauty, the truth of God, the truth of love, the truth of joy that has more power than any human condition. And we lift those that need to be lifted. We lift ourselves when we need to lift ourselves. We lift each other in this truth, and we allow ourselves to listen, whether visioning what is seeking to reveal, what is seeking to emerge, and allowing it step by step, breath by breath, to make itself known. That this creative energy, source energy, is always, always infinitely, just constantly revealing itself. And just all that is life is God. So we breathe into this with love and with kindness. We breathe into this knowing that the power and the presence is here right now, in through and as each one of us. We know the flow. No matter what that seems to be solid, but we know the flow. The ground is flowing, the good is present, the love is seeking to reveal. It's here now. And we are that expression, that experience of God. And we, as the light, begin to turn on the lights so all beings awaken to the truth of this. And so, knowing that it is so, I give thanks for this time. I give thanks for the wisdom that was revealed. I give thanks for Spirit just always flowing in a way that just touches our hearts and lifts our lives. And I give thanks for Austin Center for Spiritual Living for being that fantastic, beautiful place to come together, to navigate this human experience, but yes, stay grounded in our spiritual truth and knowing that it is good because it is God. I just allow this word to be in just great gratitude, not only for our time together, but for the wisdom, these principles, these teachings, each other, and the love that binds us and holds us together. That how good it is to know this truth and to be this truth. So as I let this word be in the divine activity of the law, I bless each person. I bless them today and every day. I know that all that's seeking to reveal reveals, and all that is seeking to release does so with ease and with grace. And knowing that is so, take a breath with me as we breathe in. Such gratitude. And as we release, we let go, we let God, and we let it be. And let's affirm this together by saying, and so it is.